Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening up in the stars above. And as you all know, it's been a crazy weekend, hasn't it? The astrology. We always talk about how life imitates art or art imitates life. Well, we're living through a time where if you don't really understand how astrology is impacting all of us, you've been living under a rock because the powerful energies of these planets, which, by the way, are not the cause of anything, they're more the outpicturing of what's happening here on the planet, right? It's like as above, so below. And above us, everything is a bit chaotic, and there are a lot of signposts showing us change and major transformation. And all of that is being reflected back to the heavens from all of the people here on the planet. So it's a correlation of things, not a one-to-one exact uh, uh, kind of cause and effect thing. I hope that makes sense. So when we are looking at the transits on a daily basis or twice weekly when we sit here and meet together, we're not really talking about causatives. We're talking about, well, what might we see from all of this crazy kind of making transiting planet energy? And, of course, for weeks we've been building up to the possibility that Joe Biden would drop out of the race here in the United States. And voila, just post the full moon, when literally the moon has moved into Aquarius and met up with Pluto, the great transformer, Joe Biden steps down and then further throws his support behind Kamala Harris, the current vice president here in the United States. So besides the politics of it all and all of that, loud noise that we're going to start hearing about Kamala and Trump and all the other things that get said in a political um, year, a political election year, we're going to start to really see something very interesting about the timing of all of this. And that is this shift that Pluto's bringing us to the power to the people and the ability for us to be more in command, if you will, of the future, of what comes next. And I was listening to, gosh, who was it? I don't know, I've had a crazy weekend. I went back to see my sister in Eastern Washington. I went from 105 degrees there to 60. Right now it's 55 degrees here, and it's only heading to 60 something today. It'll be, kind of a shock, just like everything else that's going on in life right now. Shocks, right? But as we really take a look at the greater picture, we see this movement toward the divine feminine, and that's kind of hard to see right now with, or had been a little hard to see with these, two men that really epitomize the patriarchy that were standing, as the contestants in this great election. And then the change over to people having the power, right? There's power for the people in grassroots movements, in the way that we can gather and the way that we can spend our money or spend our time. And it'll be interesting to see how that starts to ramp up over the next couple of months. So I actually do not know much about Kamala Harris other than, that she's the vice president and she came from a lawyer background. And, here it's not my intention to browbeat or bash anybody. Right. That's not the case. But we can really see, and, you guys can all go out and find all the dirt you want on any one of the candidates or any people that we talk about. But what I'm looking at is the is the directional energy that's coming up from the elevation of certain people and the demotion, if you will, of others. And that sounds like a negative, but the falling away of others. And what I really see as we look at Kamala's chart is she is a Libra. And Librans are known as the consummate diplomats. They're tactful. They represent the idea of teamwork and collaboration and working together. Now, I'm not saying that she's the candidate that's going to be that, but she holds the template for that, as opposed to other people in the race that don't hold that same kind of template. So the only concern I have as I looked at her chart this morning is that she has the moon sitting in Aries and at 27 degrees, so the end of the sign of Aries. And here's where the lover or hater kind of energy comes in, right? Because Aries moon, especially women, right? You're putting a woman with an Aries moon in the domain of the masculine energy. Aries is ruled by Mars, Mars the masculine. And she likely can have this calming effect in it, right? A more balancing effect in Aries. But what she triggers is other people's projections upon her. And that's problematic, right? If you're trying to run a nation or you're trying to run for the highest office in the land, and you've got people projecting their anger, their hate, their upset, their discontent on top of you, that can make it very difficult to run in the race. So it'll be interesting to see how she harnesses some of this energy and is able to use it either to her benefit or to her detriment. It is certainly going to be an interesting couple of months. Um, we definitely need to take a deeper look at her. As I was at the last second, I decided to pull her chart. So I really haven't had a chance to look at it or even read about what other astrologers might be saying about it. I noticed that her Jupiter return just occurred when Jupiter was at 24 degrees of Taurus. So she's just a couple of maybe a month into her new 12-year Jupiter cycle. That bodes well as Jupiter represents luck and fortune. She might represent something about the people here in our nation that might be seeking optimism, right? Or seeking the higher picture, the higher road. She also has Mars just having moved into Gemini, moving into her first house. I don't know if that's a help or a hindrance, right? Because Mars is the ruler then of her moon. And of course, that's the moon of a chart of a nation represents the people. And so it's the people that she is going to have to convince that she might be the best candidate, and also the people of the Democratic National Convention, the delegates, if you will, that will decide whether she is actually going to appear on the ticket. And then there's Uranus, who is in her 12th house in Taurus on top of her natal Jupiter. And this is where these surprises come from, right? The surprises, the excitement, the shock, right? These things happen. And her particular Jupiter is sitting in that 12th house where and you guys, if you've had readings with me and you happen to have Jupiter in your 12th house, what I will often tell you is that there's a hidden master inside of you. Like there's this guru person, right? There's this divine master, mistress that is there for you to pluck into your everyday life, but often is sort of hidden by the outer world, by other people in your life, or by your own fears, right? The 12th house can sometimes bring up the hidden ways that we sabotage ourselves that are usually because of fear or some kind of block or restriction that we have placed upon ourselves or that we've believed to be true about ourselves. And she has that Jupiter in this 12th house. I mean, there's something to be said here for this hidden placement of Jupiter and the potential of Uranus awakening something deep within her, even deep within the people, to bring something out from her. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But of course, Taurus is a sign of the comfort zone. So is she willing to step outside of the comfort zone? Right? She's been comfortable as the vice president, not necessarily having to take the reins of power, not necessarily having to be seen as to what her flaws might be, or seen as to what she can do or what she will do. So it's going to be an interesting next few months. So keep an eye out as we get an opportunity to talk more. One of the things I do note about the presidents of the United States over history is that almost all of them have some kind of powerful connection in their natal astrology charts to 26 degrees of Aquarius, which is where the natal moon of the USA is. And so the first thing I look at for any of the candidates is going to be, where is that moon? Or where is that 26 degrees of Aquarius, and what planets might be sitting on that? And Kamala has her natal Saturn retrograde at 28 degrees of Aquarius. That puts it in orb of a conjunction to the USA natal moon. The natal moon in a chart of the USA representing the people, we the people. Interesting that our country's, Declaration of Independence, we the people, right? So keep an eye out, keep an open mind, right? I made myself keep an open mind this weekend about Trump, who you all know I don't really like, right? I can't stand the way that he's just one of those people that you look at and you're like, can you call more attention to yourself and be more narcissistic? Because that's how I see him. That's just how I see him. Doesn't mean it's truth, but it's how I see him. So it'll be interesting to see, right, how these two are going to play off one another. I don't know. Um, the important thing, and this is what I started to talk about in this video that I was watching the other day, is to remember that no matter what's going on in that bigger picture, it's your job to stay centered, to stay in love energy if possible, right? Unconditional love if possible, and to keep to your own code. What is it that you're here to do, right? To keep centered in your own life, right? You're not Kamala, you're not Trump, you're not Joe Biden, right? You have your own path, and it's your job to stay in that, right? And to stay in that loving energy. And then to, when you're called upon to do the right things that are right for you, right? Not just because somebody says something else bad about somebody else, and or any of the noise that's out there in the world. And by keeping to your own desires, keeping to love energy through this period of time, we remain above the fray. And that's what we need to be, right? We need to be above this fray. We can't let this fray and the potential for, all the noise to take us down, right? To take us away from what it is that we're here to do, and what it is that we're here to achieve for ourselves personally, but what you are here to give to through service, or through sharing your gifts and your talents with the greater world, right? The greater world, or the greater community that you live in. So it's really hard. I have to keep picturing myself, right? So I don't get into that negative Nelly and oh my God uh, energy, because it's out there and it's easy to fall into it. But, just step back a little bit and, be more objective. So interesting because, if I had to, the thing that has been really negative about this election was the relative ages of the men that were near, the top of the tickets, the nominees, and the backslide that is, kind of we're on the edge of being backslid into some, more authoritarian type energies. And then comes along someone new and fresh, someone that is not necessarily a Washington insider, a DC insider. While she's in it now for sure, but she's not necessarily an insider there that might bring fresh perspectives. We don't know. So stay open minded, right? Stay open minded. And remember that evolution is pushing us forward. We're being pushed forward to a golden age. I don't know that that happens in my lifetime. I wish, I hope, but we are being pushed to a golden age, and all of the evolutionary impulses, all of even the negative things that sometimes get exaggerated in our outer world, um, are there to show us where we've gone wrong. Where is it that we are not aligned with that golden age? Okay. So it's always course correcting, right? If you were driving somewhere and you got off course, your map would be yelling at you, right? Turn left, go back, make a U turn. Get back in alignment with the highest principles and values that you hold dear. Okay. Off the soapbox. And let's talk about what is happening this week. This is kind of a crazy week on the back of the crazy week that we already had. And there's this definite fallout feeling from yesterday's full moon. It happened very early here on the West Coast, 3:17 I think it was in the morning, 6:17 in the morning at 29 degrees of Capricorn. It is almost like the exclamation point at the end of Pluto's transit of Capricorn, even though it wasn't Pluto that was sitting there, but soon Pluto will be back at that degree. The shakeup may continue, right? Because of that power of Pluto sitting at a 29th degree, right now sitting at a 0 degree. So what we saw yesterday in the fallout from Joe Biden's stepping down is the potential of Pluto in Aquarius, right? A newer age of politics in this country. It's the potential. It isn't written in stone yet, but it's this potential. And then as Pluto moves back to 29th degrees of Capricorn, where I think that's next month, he'll move back to that degree, sit there until November after the election. So it'll be interesting. It adds another little layer, right? So this full moon brings about the ending of the career, if you will, of a person who's been in office for or been in politics for I don't know 50 some years, right? Elevate someone new. There's this potential then for other things to be elevated to the new, to be elevated as we go on. So the fallout here would be about, well, what is that going to look like in the context of the 29th degree of Capricorn being hit yet again, but this time by Pluto, another major um, transformational impulse, right? That's an impulse sort of energy. So I looked up what the 29th degree of Capricorn means in the Dane Rudhyar book, where he's talking about the astrological mandala. And it's really interesting because I'll tell you why, because in a minute. But here's what the phase is: it's a secret meeting of men responsible for executive decisions in world affairs. And the keynote says the power to assume responsibility for crucial choices arrived at after mature discussions with those who share this power. And then it goes on to say, we are all aware now of the work of secret committees in the White House and at all levels of the government. The student of esoteric philosophy believes in the existence of what has been called an inner government. We might call it the deep state. We might call it the secret government, the shadow government. It's known by many different names, which has the power to direct or guide the evolution of our planet and of humankind. Some people speak of a cult hierarchy or the White Lodge. Here again, what is at stake is a seeing through the facts of telluric processes and human history, assuming that these facts are at least in part the outcome of the decisions of a supreme council of quasi divine beings. Hmm. Obviously, the symbol can also refer to what occurs at the more ordinary level of business and politics. At any level, it refers to the highest form of social interaction. And we see it in the culmination of social responsibility and a reference to executive power. Can't make this stuff up. It's there, right? The secret nature of things that are going on, the machinations behind the scenes that then are maybe causative agents to the change. It's not necessarily specifically cause and effect, but there are, things that are happening in behind the things that we don't see with our eyes, but that eventually pop out and drive things forward. So keep a keep an eye out, right? Keep an ear out. Try to stay in as much of calmness as possible during this period of time. And immediately following that 29th degree of Capricorn full moon would be the 0 degrees of Aquarius, right? 29 degrees leads to 0 Aquarius, or 29 Capricorn leads to 0 Aquarius, which is exactly where Pluto is sitting at 0 degrees, 53 minutes of the sign of Aquarius. So the moon would have come into a conjunction with Pluto right after the full moon, right? Showing us the new direction. Where is this full moon lunation period taking us? Where is the ending, the culmination point of the full moon leading us, right? And now today, the sun moves into Leo, and it'll be the sun now sitting in an opposition to 0 degrees of Aquarius, Leo and Aquarius being oppositions of one another. Leo being the sign of royalty, being the sign of leadership, and kind of egalitarianism, right? This idea of power to the people and that government is working for the people. Leo gone wrong is when there's the power grab and where there's this narcissistic authoritarianism that we see in certain other candidates running for president here in the US, but also in characters on the world stage. That is what is passing out of the paradigm, right? I don't know that this happens in this election cycle here in the US, but it's passing out of existence as time marches forward, right? We, the people, won't tolerate that. We should never be tolerant of that kind of behavior. But hopefully, we come to our senses soon. So, what does the sun in Leo in an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius mean for us as we go on here? And that's a great question because it's not just the transit now of the sun in Leo, which we have every year, right, from about this time until August 21st. Um, it is there's more attached to it than that this year. And let's talk about, what is all of this about? So when the moon is transiting a sign, we know it's going to be emotional, right? We know it's going to be an inner sort of change or an emotional reaction that we're going to have. When it's the sun, this is an aspect that brings about powerful dynamics in the outer world or, in our egos, dare I say, right? Leo kind of rules the ego energies. And it brings this dynamic of, personal expression and transformation with its opposition of Pluto. So, and it highlights the themes then of power, personal power in particular, but also power, control, dramatic changes in our paradigm, in our relationships, even, and in our social dynamics, right? There's this powerful transition that's happening. And it often signals a time when underlying power struggles of intense nature come to the surface and the transformative processes come to the forefront. Now we can see, like it's almost like it's just right there now for us to see, um, this transition that's happening, right? Especially when it is around the ideas of autonomy, being your own person or being a lone wolf, and being in a collaborative situation where we're willing to add our I to the we, right? Adding the I to the we. And also the individuality of each of us that is added to the group interests, right? Pluto in Aquarius represents group interests, the people, right? Your whatever group that is. So it hits us on all the levels of how we come together in groups. And interesting that we're being asked to step up in this way. And it represents this personal expression versus transformation. So, you're looking at this time where all of this fractured nature, all of this polarity, all of this duality that's been happening And we live on a planet of duality, so I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's a time where we have to really look at a different view of how do we want to come together? How do we want to move forward from here? Can we stay fractured and move in a very powerful evolutionary way? I don't think so, right? I don't think so. So here, the Leo sun is emphasizing then self expression, the pride we take in the work that we do, and our identities, while Pluto in Aquarius challenges the themes and with demands for change. And it's often in the context of the larger social groups or the community or the nation or even, the world that we see these changes manifest, or where the tension between these ideas of expressing oneself freely and adapting to the transformation, that the power of transformation that's being pushed kind of into us, or the pressure that we are, that we're feeling for transformation take place. And it erupts in power struggles. And the opposition can bring those power struggles right to the surface, right where it's time for us to deal with them out in the open, in honest, transparent, um, and powerful ways, using power for the good, right? Instead of power usurping other people's wills, right? Or usurping the power of the people through all of these different ways that that's happened in the past. And it might involve confrontations that force a reevaluation of what it means to be a leader, right? That's happening anyway because this week in human design, the sun actually moves into the gate 31, the gate of leadership, right? The gate of egalitarian leadership, right? So it is another reevaluation of authority and who should have authority, how much authority, right? Do we want to give authority away to a central government, let's say, or to a president, let's say? Um, that is just something that just jumped into my head here. But also your personal power versus collective power, right? These are big themes. No doubt it's going to take a lot of time for us to notice these themes actually playing out. But this is the potential of what is starting as of today, right? With this. And it can force a sort of dramatic transformation in within us personally, within us as a society, and as a collective, right? So those different ways in which we can sort of categorize humanity. And the influence isn't soft, right? Pluto does not go quietly into the night. Pluto energy here is about tearing down the old and rebuilding in the new. And the Leo sun really shining that energy. So when opposed by the sun, changes and transformation can be really visible and dramatic, right? Yesterday is pretty much drama trauma, right? Depending on how you look at it and what side of the aisle you're on, to say, from a political point of view. And it affects the areas that Leo rules in our chart, which is literally creative energy, romance, in relationships, with our value system in terms of how our values are transmitted to the society that we live in. And it also has a tendency to reveal the hidden. And Pluto tends to reveal what's under the surface. Like, what did we sweep under the carpet? What's been suppressed? And it comes up in sometimes explosive manners, right? In an explosive way. Under the opposition with the sun, it's secrets or underlying themes in your own personal life that may come up, but also those that we're seeing in our outer world. So it's a very, very powerful time. Um, it can really enhance our creativity and the potential for us to be in renewal, right? There's this huge transformation ability that happens with creative energy. What if we can get outside of ourselves, or if we can get beyond the stumbling blocks of, ourselves, we can see, where creativity can sort of take us in a new direction. It can change our personal expression as well as our collective expression. So think of it for you personally as a renewal of your self identity, looking at it to see how you can redefine yourself in the context of the world, and how do you want to be seen by others. right? Look at it that way. And it can lead to significant changes then in your identity and your outward expression of yourself. This is really a time for us to be in our own power. Now, there are some things, of course, where that practical things that come up in a transit like this, and it's really about negotiating those power dynamics because there's the push me, pull you, power things that go on. So, becoming aware of where control and dominance on one side of the equation needs to be balanced with solutions and peaceful momentum, finding your own stride, and then look for ways to resolve conflict, whether it's through mediation, or where it's through a different level of conversation, right? I would love to see, in the context of a political conversation, a candidate who's really talking more about what they can do versus what their opponent doesn't do or doesn't do well, right? I would love to hear a conversation from a politician about what their vision is for the future and how it is that they would get us to where we want to go versus how poorly the other person has done in any way, shape, or form in creating a vision. Yeah, but we can do this personally, right? We can demand that those are the things that we hear about. And we can do that by becoming our own leaders, leading by example, let's say, in your life. So embrace change during this time. We can't avoid it, it's there. I don't know how many times I've had to say that in the last few months. Embrace change. Transformation is coming, it's here. Pursue creative ventures. Leo is heart centered energy. He rules the heart in the body, literally the heart, the physical heart. He also rules the spine, and so the back and the spinal posture and the relative strength of the spine. And if we're talking about Leo energy, then what we are doing is orienting ourselves toward our desires, toward what we love, toward what we want, to what we want to create. Not to do so puts you out of alignment with the sun at this point in time, right? Or with the Leo part of your chart, wherever that is. So pursue your creative ventures. What do I want? And also reflect on concepts of personal power. I was having a conversation with a friend this morning, sort of a text conversation very quickly. And I asked the question, are you ready to take command of your own life now? Because we've just been pussyfooting around, right? Really just kind of playing lip service to this idea of power and transformation. So reflect on your impact on others and what kind of impact do you want to have on others through your creative efforts, through the sharing of your gifts and your talents. And it's an excellent time then perhaps for therapy, for counseling, for coaching, that type of thing. But we also have to watch out for this intensity that can be brought up, not just because of the Leo sun, but because of Leo in the opposition to Pluto. So it intensifies our emotional interactions, right? Our heart, when our heart is hurting, we tend to go overboard here. And that can lead to conflict or crises within our relationships, especially the close ones, right? So your significant others or your family relationships. Avoid being manipulated by others. Really ask yourself the tough questions. Is this true? Right? I was sitting with my brother-in-law yesterday, and he is a diehard Republican. I walk down the middle, right? I'm independent. I would like to see myself as an independent. And he's insisting to me that, all Joe Biden does is lies. And I looked at him, I said, is that true? And what examples do you have of that? And he was able to give me an example or two, which I looked up and found were not true. How many times do we just accept what we hear from the news or from other people in our lives about what's possible, about what's not possible, about what's true and about what's not true? And do we ever take the next step to validate it, right? Is this really true? So You have the opportunity now to really step up, avoid the manipulation of the news cycle, of other people. Even don't get manipulated even by what I'm saying here. Look it up for yourself. Question everything, everything, everything that you think you believe. And then let go of your resistance to changing your belief system if indeed that's required of you, which it may very well be. The idea of Pluto being involved here is to let go of the old, right? The old identities, the old roles that you've been playing, that we've all been playing, uh, old behaviors that no longer are viable. We can't take it into the future with us. Resistance to transformation can just lead to more dramatic upheavals, to more trauma dramas, right? To more getting stuck in the old and not being able to move forward. So, what I find this next 30 days of the sun in Leo being triggered initially by the Leo opposition or the Leo sun opposing the Aquarian Pluto is that we have to demand that our attention is placed on where are we stuck and where do we want to move. Issues of power and identity and your transformational power. We have to navigate these energies wisely, however, right? We can't just like jump ship. We can't. So, I kiddingly said one time I was going to move to Canada, or I was going to move to, I don't know, Tahiti, or an island in the South Pacific where I don't hear any of this noise. I don't think that's what I came here to do. So I'll still be here, being a voice for calm, for reason, and for seeing the bigger picture behind all of the drama. It's like this parade of people, and, some parts of the parade are loud and noisy, like the band, and others are these beautiful floats that come through, and they have these beautiful people, and there's beautiful, flowers, perhaps. That's what our existence is at this point. It's a parade of all of these different energies designed for us to evolve through. So embrace change as an opportunity for growth, for renewal, and for moving forward fearlessly. All right. Now, I haven't said good morning to anybody, so I'm going to do that real quickly. And then we're going to talk about Mercury's move into Virgo this week as well. Good morning, Chester's mom and Diana. It's great to see you. Corey, good morning. Christine Buckingham, good to have you here. And Teddy, now we have to re register my Kindle Play. I don't know what that is. Tom, hello to you. Uh, Tom says, so does this apply to politics in other countries? Absolutely. Absolutely, right? It's going on all around the world. I'm just not as familiar with you know, um, this parade as it comes to other countries. But you guys are the experts in your own countries, right? Tom, you live in Canada, and take a look at this in the context of what's going on in your country, right? How is it that you're in transformation energy, and how is it that the old is being made to give way to the new? I was just I see a an actual video that I want to watch later today if I ever get a chance about the fall of the monarchies. And not just the British monarchy, but it's specific to the British monarchy, and how the British monarchy in particular hasn't done well during the times that Pluto was in Aquarius. And that was just the first glance that I saw. At those times there was the energy of Pluto in Aquarius. Not long after that, we started hearing about well, first of all, the Queen dies, leaving Charles in charge, and Charles then has a cancer diagnosis, and then followed by Princess Catherine, and there's a lot of talk all the time about the changes that are being brought to the monarchy, and it hasn't been kind. Pluto in Aquarius has not been kind to the British monarchy and other monarchies as well. So it'll be interesting to see, how other countries are going with this energy flow of the transit of Pluto in their signs. And remember, USA's just had a Pluto return. And technically, in sidereal astrology, we're now in the Pluto return, where the Pluto return in the tropical sense, which was in 2021, 2022, wasn't truly the Pluto return. if you look at it, from a standpoint of the constellations and the connection to the sign in the constellation. So lots of stuff here around the world that we could look to. Jolie, that was a great question, Tom. Good morning, Jolie. And Chester's mom says, how refreshing. Good morning, Terry. Catherine Worcester, good morning to you. Teddy says, now it doesn't recognize me. Oh, you're having tech issues, right? Not a surprise considering we're in the shadow of Mercury's next retrograde and some kind of mountain, Mount Etna, erupted and opened up something like 3 vents of eruption. That just boggles the mind. Um, Christine says, because Fox said so. Exactly. My brother in law is a Fox News. But here's the thing, I'm watching him evolve. I am watching this man. Yesterday, we had to ad nauseum, we were watching Fox News. I wasn't really watching. I kept trying to have conversation with him so I wasn't having to listen. But then he turns it to CNN. And then he says, and then sometimes I'll turn it to MSNBC so I can see, from the more liberal news, the more middle of the road news, and from the more conservative side. And I went, who are you and what have you done with my brother-in-law? Because that's new, right? That's new for him, and I like that. I think all of us need to evolve that way, right? Even me listening to I listened. Oh my lord, I listened to Trump's speech in Michigan, and I was more convinced than ever that he is not someone that I can put my vote to. Uh, but I made myself do it because I needed to see the fuller picture. Right? It wasn't comfortable. He's terrible to listen to as a speech or a speaker, but I made myself do it. So I encourage all of you, get a full view, right? Get the full view. New fresh energy, new ways. Sounds wonderful to me. There we go. Terry Lee Strauss, good morning to you. Deep stuff, she says. It is indeed. Tahiti, New Zealand, and Ireland sound wonderful. Exactly. Actually, New Zealand sounds really good to me. Tom says, I love a parade. And in Canada, the candidates are in their 40s and 50s, younger than US. Some in the UK, not sure about Australia and New Zealand. It's definitely a time to pass the torch, right, to some of the younger. I really, um, I really enjoyed seeing the age group when Obama was president, right, and then interesting to see it drug back down into the older ages later. And yeah, we definitely need that younger energy. They're holding the codes and the templates. Because it's typically, our age groups. Most of you are probably, in your 40s, 50s, um, it's maybe early 60s, and it's time for that age group to really step up, right? The 40s end might be a little young. Maybe they need to get their chops, in some of the other forms of government first, but it's really time for the middle group to step into power because that's the way the natural order works out, right? The old gives way to to the younger, and then they'll age, and then the next group takes over. So that's the right way to do it. LOL, did you see Hulk Hogan yelling and ripping off his shirt during the RNC? I missed that. How did I miss that? That's so true. It's our time to step in, to step up, to step out. Get out of your own way, right? Get out, do, what you can do in the context of your own human design, in the context of your own astrology. Who is it that you're here to be? How are you here to impact people? Okay, let's talk about the moon. Let's talk about the Mercury moving into Virgo in preparation for his next retrograde, August 5th through August 25th. So we are, just literally 2 weeks away from Mercury retrograde in Virgo, a sign that Mercury rules, right? So we have an empowered Mercury turning retrograde in Virgo. He will retrograde back to Leo. But as he prepares to go into his retrograde cycle, it's signaling to us a period of intensified analytical thinking, attention to detail, a focus on refining things, right? And the processes of things, refining what we do, what we think, how we think, all of that. And Virgo is a sign that really excels in precision, in organization, in efficiency. And with Mercury as its ruler, the placement naturally here of Mercury turning retrograde in Virgo enhances things like communication, all the Mercury ruled things: communication, organization, practical analysis, and the ability for us to be more into seeing the details and the forest, right? The forest and the trees. But as typical retrograde, happens, there could be challenges such as misunderstandings, delays, and the need for us to revise our plans, to revise the things that we are doing, right? To reimagine things, to take a look at in this case, Virgo, take a look at the analysis and ask the question, is this really right? Is this, are these facts correct? Not just allowing, um, the facts that other people feed you to be true. So there you have that. But we all have heightened analytical skills during this period of time, right? Virgo is a sign of analytics, detail oriented communication, being able to really dial in and say what you need to say. It can be excellent time for anything that requires you to have detail orientation or meticulousness, right? Being very meticulous. Um, Problem solving is enhanced during this period of time, believe it or not. Mostly because what happens is Mercury in the sign going retrograde slows things down, right? So the analysis isn't just, off the hip and may or may not be correct. It gives us this time to really improve and refine the details, processing the improvements that are needed. And because Virgo is also a sign of health and well-being, that might play out in our health and in our daily routines, right? Where we emphasize the changing of our routines, moving more toward health and the healthy expression of that. So, in preparing for Mercury's retrograde cycle, and this is important because we know it's coming, we, we don't get to avoid it. um, Start now to kind of reevaluate and maybe kind of revise what is going on in your life, your health, your money, your business, your relationships, whatever area, wherever Virgo is in your chart, right? This is where you want to check over and reevaluate everything that's going on in that area of your life. Make sure you have backup plans or contingencies, right? Especially if you're working on something super important, don't leave it to chance, right? Make sure that you have double checking, or that you've been double checking your communication, that you are double checking agreements. You don't want to have the actual retrograde blues, right? Of misunderstandings that happen. So it'll be a great time for all of us with Mercury moving through Virgo to declutter and organize. Use this time to clean off your desk, to clear out the closet. My refrigerator needs cleaning out. I think that's something I'm going to have to work on. Review the systems of things that you have in place, especially if you use them regularly. You get into this, habit of how it works. But maybe there's something that you're missing in that. Make sure it's running as smoothly as possible. Back up your computers, people. Make sure maybe you have hard copies of things as well as digital copies of things. Important things, not everything, but those important things. Get health checkups. It's a perfect time to talk to your doctor or talk to your health professional. Focus on preventive care, like maybe time for, teeth, or just getting that, regular yearly checkup. Check on your diet, check on your fitness routines. Make the adjustments that you need for more healthy expression. Don't forget your mental health and mindfulness here. Mercury rules the mind. And maybe it's time to engage and to promote activities that give you clarity or stress reduction, right? That's another big deal. Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, all of those different things. It might be a good time to learn a new skill, right? Because anything that we do on the internal, any learnings, learning may take place on the outside, but it is taking place, and making the connections and integrating on the inner planes. It is a time to watch out for being overly critical. Virgo's a nitpicking sign, right? So watch out for being overly critical of yourself, of a project that you're working on, or of others, right? You don't want to lead yourself into strained relationships because you can't help yourself being nitpicky or being too perfectionistic, right? Or being overly critical or judgmental. Those are all potentials with Mercury and Virgo. Perfectionism, right, is a big deal here. And if you are constantly in a state of seeking perfection, it might result in procrastination, dissatisfaction with your own or others' works or your efforts. So watch out for that. Everything is perfect as it is right now. That doesn't mean that it can't get better, but it means that you have to be able to, put your work out there or do take that next step. It'll show you if it's not perfect, right? And that something needs to be changed. But don't let it be a reason for stopping you from moving forward. Procrastination is not your friend here. Um, Slowing down to do the analysis is your friend, but holding yourself back or procrastinating is not. Remember that communication delays and reversals are possible because Mercury is the communication planet. As Mercury slows down and prepares to go into that retrograde, that's when it's the trickiest. That's where the potential for misunderstandings happens. It's where the need for us to redo or clarify our previous communication happens. Technology and travel hiccups, right? I saw Friday's IT debacle as an indication of what might be going on during this Mercury retrograde period because we're in the shadow, right? The shadow tends to show us what is it that might be breaking down, what is it that might need to have more of our attention to. So that is one of those things, technology, right? That is ruled by Mercury, and Virgo is the analytical component of that technology. So Mercury entering Virgo is a time for us to take a look at all of the things that are going on in our lives, analyze whether it is moving us ahead in a powerful way or is it detracting. Um, Pay attention to your health, pay attention to the details. Don't get lost in the details, but pay attention to them. And, maybe aim to balance the Virgo detail orientation with flexibility and patience so that during the retrograde, you're not getting tripped up. Okay. And there's more about the retrograde that we could talk about, but I'm only bringing the retrograde up because Virgo is the place that Mercury will retrograde. All right. Good morning, Narges. It's good to see you. Tom says, don't skulk, vote Hulk. Oh my gosh, you're so funny, Tom. All right, so let's take a look at one other thing happening a little bit later this week. The sun will come into a sextile with Mars. So, it's today, and literally, I think, we got to watch this the whole of the month. But today is the sun in the opposition to Pluto. I believe it's Thursday. Thursday, Mercury moves into Virgo, and Thursday, the sun comes into the sextile with Mars. So, expect that opposition will play out at least until Thursday. And when the sun is in Leo and it forms that sextile, which is a harmonious aspect with Mars, who is in Gemini, right? He's in Gemini. It's really a harmonious and dynamic sort of energy between the two, and this is a blending of Leo's expressive nature, confidence with Gemini's communication and action-oriented vibes. Mars, Gemini, action-orienting, and it means that literally this might really promote a vibrancy in our communication and in the work that we do. That's pretty positive, right? It is enhancing our creativity and enhancing our communication with each other. It is, maybe giving us a tap into more energy, more flow, more enthusiasm, right? Motivation to do things. It might be activating your social life in some way because Leo's social, Mars and Gemini is social. So it makes it a great time for discussions, for fun, for having interactions with people. Our energy levels could be really high, so we need to watch out for burnout, especially if you're a projector, a reflector, or a manifester, as you don't have access to a defined sacral center. So your vitality isn't as sustainable as it is as the generators and manifesting generators. So you want to make sure that you're not tapping inappropriately into the energy of action. You want to make sure that you're sticking with, is this the correct thing for me? Right? Is this the right path? It's a time for pursuing interests and learning, multitasking, right? This will be juggler time. And that's great for manifesting generators. You're used to that energy. The other four types, we're not so used to that energy. We might find ourselves overly busy and overly having to manage many different things at one time. Make sure to breathe. Make sure to slow down if possible. Try not to skip steps unless you're a manifesting generator and designed to do it that way. Take your time in all of that. So I don't see this one as a terribly negative, challenging aspect, but there are always a couple of challenges anytime we're dealing with signs. We have the negative and the positive, and the tendency for overextending ourselves, right? Going too far too fast, doing too much. Um, Balancing the need to balance all these different multiple projects and things that are going on can really cause us to overcommit our time, our energy, our resources, especially in social settings or in the work that we do, right? We may take on too much, and it may be difficult to maintain focus. Right? Mars is that action. He is catalyzing movement. And in Gemini, there's the thinking, right? So we're bumping up against the need for thinking and the need for action. So prioritize things in your life, right? Prioritize your tasks to ensure that you complete what you start, or that, you get to that end that you want. And watch out for impatience and restlessness. Another big deal. Um, Mars impulsiveness and Gemini's tendency to scatter focus, right? But it's a sort of fortuitous aspect, right? This is a good coming together of energy. It's creative, it's intellectual, it's social. So make the most of it, right? Make the most of it later in the week. Um, I also wanted to talk. I've got 3 minutes. Wow, how did the time fly like this? I also wanted to talk about the change in the week, human design wise, but I think we'll do that on Friday. Um, yeah, Friday. So I'm going to pull a card. Let's see any questions out there. Go ahead and put it in the comments. I am going to pull a card from the Wisdom of the Oracle deck by Colette Baron Reed. I really like this deck for giving us wise guidance on what is ahead of us and on the actions that we can take. And oh, yes, that card flipped out. It's card number 8. It is called The Tribe. The Tribe. And you can see it's a lovely picture of all the animals coming together as a tribe. Card number 8 speaks to abundance, speaks to the connection of heart and matter, the physical world. And let's see what this means for us. 11, 8. Okay. And it was upright. Oh, that's not it. Past it. Here we go. The essential meaning is community, belonging, being seen and understood by others, like minded connections, a sense of family and friendship, knowing your place in the world. And the oracle's message is this card signals a new affiliation with a group. Humans are social creatures, and we need to know we are useful to our tribes, families, and communities. In a tribe, everyone has an important function and feels like they matter. Membership in the group provides a sense of belonging, of kinship, and of purpose that comes from working together for the greater fulfillment of all. Sounds very much like Leo energy here. Sounds very much like Gate 31 energy, which we didn't get to talk about today. Perhaps you are part of a spiritual community or an artistic one. Perhaps you're learning, or perhaps you are in a learning community where you share your love of education. Regardless of its form or focus, your community brings you joy. You will be inspired by it and want to contribute to it. Your contribution may be as small as showing up or as large as becoming its leader. No matter your position in the tribe, Your presence is needed. So show up. Show up with your gifts and your treasures, right? All right. So the tribe. That is it for me. Today let's see, today is the 22nd. I will see you on Friday where we'll dig into more about the human design and what we might expect for the upcoming weekend. Thank you all for being here. Much love to you all. See you Friday.